Satellite images of the Persian Gulf at night reveal a jarring contrast. On the southern shore, the Arabian Peninsula is a network of brilliant city lights, Dubai, Doha, and Abu Dhabi glowing like a neon necklace. But look north, across the water, and you find a 3,000-kilometer swath of total darkness. This is the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through here, the ultimate strategic asset. Yet trade volume tells a story of isolation. While one Dubai port handles 80 ships daily, Iran's entire coastline averages only 85 a month. This economic void isn't a result of poor geography or a lack of natural resources. It is the outcome of a specific strategic pattern that has defined the Iranian state for decades. To understand why this coastline remains a wasteland, we have to look at the Iranian landscape as a defensive fortress, a territory shaped by a deep-seated historical suspicion of the sea. Historically, the Iranian coast has been the primary entry point for foreign invaders. From Alexander the Great and the Arab conquests to the Portuguese and the British, nearly every major threat to the Persian heartland arrived from the water. In response, Iranian empires developed a survival strategy based on retreat. They moved their capitals inland, using the Zagros Mountains as an impenetrable wall. The steep, jagged terrain made it nearly impossible for an invading navy to push deep. Surviving in the arid interior required a feat of engineering, the Qanat system. These hand-excavated underground tunnels carry fresh water from the mountains directly to the cities, keeping the civilization's lifeblood hidden from enemies on the surface. Centuries of this defensive posture created a rigid rule in the Iranian strategic mindset. Building on the coast was seen as a liability. The further a city was from the ocean, the safer it was from conquest. This ancient defensive mechanism saved the empire countless times, but it also permanently shifted the nation's focus away from the sea, equating coastal development with national insecurity. In the modern era, the Iranian government has weaponized this historical fear. Today, the coast isn't a gateway for commerce, it's a front line against the United States and regional rivals, turning the shoreline into a heavily restricted military zone. By maintaining a state of constant security alert, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei ensures that the nation's infrastructure remains under the direct control of the government, preventing the rise of independent economic power. While neighboring Gulf states rewrote their laws to allow 100% foreign ownership of companies, Iran's private sector has stagnated at roughly 12%. Most major industries were nationalized shortly after the 1979 revolution and remain in state hands. Iran lacks a legal frameworks for the public-private partnerships needed to build massive ports. When combined with U.S. secondary sanctions that threaten to cut off any global company from the U.S. financial system, the foreign capital required for coastal infrastructure simply does not enter the country. By choosing absolute state control and military readiness over economic openness, the regime has successfully built a barricade that ensures its coastline remains undeveloped. However, the strategy of retreating to the interior is now facing a physical limit. The inland refuge that protected the country for 3,000 years is running out of water. Decades of drought and a shrinking groundwater supply have left the country in a crisis. Annual rainfall has dropped significantly, and major reservoirs, like the ones supplying 10 million people in Tehran, are reaching their lowest levels in a century. On top of the water crisis, the southern coast sits on a volatile tectonic boundary. The region experiences thousands of earthquakes, making large-scale construction even more difficult and risky for the few who remain. The very mountains and inland distances that once provided security are now suffocating the civilization they were meant to protect. This environmental pressure is driving a massive internal migration. Every year, over 1 million Iranians are forced to abandon their homes in dry rural areas, moving toward the overstrained cities of the north just to find drinking water. In the oil-rich coastal provinces, where unemployment is high and water is scarce, the situation has reached a boiling point. Citizens are taking to the streets to protest the government's failure to provide basic resources. What began as local frustration over drought has now evolved into a direct challenge to the regime's legitimacy. People are questioning a system that prioritizes centralized military control over the survival of its own citizens. Across the Gulf, the contrast is clear. One side built a global hub through trade and international trust. The other used its geography to create a prison of isolation. By attempting to lock the world out, Iran's leaders have also locked their people in, leaving them trapped inside a collapsing fortress where the water is disappearing and the very future is drying up.